For more, let's cross to Brazzaville. Richard Migaud is WHO Deputy Incident Manager for COVID-19 and the lead for immunization for the Africa region. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
So we heard in that report how at the outset, the COVAX scheme, whereby producers get the jabs into this pool that developing nations can then use, was behind schedule at the outset. Are you a half empty or half full glass kind of person when it comes to what happens going forward as we get these big announcements from the G7 of $500 million from the Americans, 50 million from the French, 100 million from the British?
Well, I think all of these are very good news, a great announcement. But the reality on the ground is just different. While globally we have more than 2 billion of vaccine doses that have been administered, the reality in Africa is that only 53 million doses have been received so far. And we're discussing about COVAX, only 22 million doses so far have been delivered to Africa. So I think looking at that glass half empty, half full, I think it's definitely half empty because we need the doses now to make sure that people on the continent can also start to receive the vaccine.
Yeah, we have the optics of the G7. Nearly 45% of the citizens from those countries have had at least one jab, and something like just over 2% in the African nations that keep updated statistics. So there is that discrepancy. Nonetheless, the goal is to have vaccinated 70% of the planet by next April. What will it take to get there?
Well, I think this is a very ambitious goal, at least for the region, because the pace that we know today for the introduction of the vaccine has been quite very slow. The Director General of WHO made the commitment to vaccinate at least, or pledge to vaccinate at least 10% of every country by September and 30% by the end of the year. And I think that these are going to be very difficult targets to reach. So the announcement that has been done by the US, but also by other members like France and European Union, are all very much welcome. And I think that what needs to happen now is to make sure that those sharing mechanisms can start to deliver the vaccine for countries for the moment. We unfortunately are seeing many countries now starting to enter a third wave, which to the data that we are seeing now is even more stronger than what we've seen in the past. So South Africa, Uganda, DRC, those are big countries that are now experiencing quite a very severe resurgence of the COVID. So we need vaccine now.
And the logistics of it, is there a reason once those doses are pledged? And we heard Joe Biden's timetable for his Pfizer vaccines that he'll give to COVAX. It was what, half of them before the end of the year and the other half in the beginning of 2022, excuse me. The logistics for getting them to real people and to having those inoculations, is it there?
Oh, absolutely. I think we have been working with many countries to help them to support and increase their logistics capabilities. So far, there are already countries that are using the Pfizer vaccine, for example, in Africa, and many more have already put in place all the necessary logistics to receive the vaccine. So, and I think the country took the advantage of this window where there was no doses to, by the way, build their infrastructure. And we were WHO working with UNICEF and other partners to make sure that countries are ready to deliver those vaccines. So on the logistics side, I can say that many countries will be ready and are really waiting to see those vaccines arriving. And it is rather a good news But again, as I said, it is now that people need to really do that. And I would like here to recognize, for instance, what the French government did in starting to share the vaccine now. We hope that we are going to move quite faster with the announcement that was done by President Biden, because this is a bold announcement that was needed. And this is what exactly is expected from many people waiting for vaccines in Africa.
You heard our correspondent saying how there is the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa among those arriving at the G7 summit to take part in those discussions. One of the things that South Africa has been pushing, along with India, is the lifting of patents so that these vaccines can be produced locally. Dr. Migo, let's listen to what the president of the European Council had to say before the start of the summit on that score.
The question of intellectual property rights will likely be raised in this context. A patent waiver might sound good, but it's no silver bullet.
Do you agree with Charles Michel?
Well, I think it's true that on a short-term perspective, waiving the intellectual property by itself will not solve the problem. But on a mid to long term, it's quite critical that Africa be well prepared, also to not be lagging behind when it comes to producing these life-saving commodities on the continent. And one of the reasons we've seen delaying even through the COVAX, because we're relying more on vaccines produced in India. And on the paper, everything was quite very well. We were expecting to receive enough doses. But when the pandemic struck quite hard in India, we realized how fragile, how well unprepared the continent was, just in depending from vaccine coming from outside. So for future pandemic, it's quite critical that the continent has the opportunity, the capability, the means to produce the vaccine locally so that we can respond to the needs of the country by scaling up production as soon as a pandemic is declared.
Yeah, because there will be other pandemics after this one. Dr. Richard Migo, many thanks for speaking with us from Brazzaville.